Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant-at-Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, if you'll be so kind as to stand. Today's chaplain is Dr. Miriam Broida, Assistant Professor of Religion at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter. As usual, members, following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Creator of the universe, I ask your blessings on all those gathered here today. Inspire them to work fairly and wisely, cooperatively and responsibly, so that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may abide forever in our midst. May these legislators and others present here safeguard the ideals and the institutions that are the pride and hope of our state and nation. May the state of Minnesota, under your providence and their leadership, be an influence for good throughout the land, banishing hatred and bigotry, uniting all people in peace and freedom, and helping us all to fulfill the vision of your prophet Amos, who said, Vayigal kamayim mishpat utzedakah kanachal etan. Let justice well up like water, righteousness like an unfailing stream. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, members. The secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Anderson, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Dietzick, Eichhorn, Farnsworth, Fate, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hoschild, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Klein, Curran, Kruin, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, Mayquade, McEwen, Miller, Mitchell, Mohammed, Morrison, Murphy, Nelson, Umu Verbatim, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, and Zhang.
Members, pursuant to 14.1, the following members intend to vote under Rule 40.7, DZIC, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Members, a quorum is present. As usual, members, if you want to follow along with me, please feel free to look at the Senate agenda for today, Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. We're going to go to the first order of business, report of committees. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that committee reports printed in the agenda and the addendum be adopted, and I ask for a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any discussion? Seeing none, the secretary will take the roll. Members, please vote. All senators having voted who desires to vote, I'm going to ask you all, don't just talk in the chamber, you have to be ready. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. No, I'll just wait. Senator Latz, I'm sorry that it was closed, and you're voting aye? Senator Latz is voting aye. Senator Uckey? No. Anyone else? Senator Liskey votes no. I'll try to be as thoughtful, but if you're in the chambers, I ask that you please pay attention. Thank you so very much. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 44 ayes and 15 noes, the motion to adopt prevails. Members, we will now go to the sixth order of business, second reading of Senate bills. The secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate file numbers 1635, 1018, and 1886.
The Senate files have been given their second reading. Members, we'll now go to the seventh order of business, the eighth order of business, members. Sorry about that. We're going to the introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members, if you look at the Senate bill introductions, we have some changes. If you'll be so kind as to go to page 5, you'll see Senate file number 2395. That bill's been referred to the Committee on Transportation. If you also go to page 6, you'll see Senate file number 2411. That bill has been referred to the Committee on Human Services. If you go over to page 7, you have Senate file number 2412 that's been referred to the Committee on Human Services. If you stay on page 7, Senate file number 2413 has been referred to the Committee on Human Services. Senate file 2414, which is also on page 7, that bill has been referred to the Committee on Human Services. And last but certainly not least, on page 7, Senate file number 2418 has been referred to the Committee on State and Local Governments and Veterans. Please go to page 13, members. That's if you're following along. On page 13, you'll see Senate file number 2470 that's been referred to the Committee on Transportation. Also, if you go to page 14, you'll see Senate file number 2488. That bill has been referred to the Committee on Human Services. And last but certainly not least, on page 15, you have Senate file number 2490 that's been referred to the Committee on Human Services, and Senate file number 2497 been referred to the Committee on Human Services. As I mentioned, members, the bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. We will now go to the ninth order of business, and you'll see motions and resolutions, and you'll see a number of motions. We will adopt the author's motions on one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Young.
Thank you, President. I move that Senate file number 1461 be withdrawn from the Committee on Education Policy and re-referred to the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. And it is my bill, and I have talked to both of the authors.
And they are in agreement, Senator?
Yes.
Thank you so very much. Senator Young, move that Senate file 1461 be withdrawn from the Committee on Education Policy and re-referred to the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. Any discussion? Seeing none, on that motion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. And in a similar vein, I move that Senate File 1765 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and we refer to the Committee on Human Services. And I spoke with the Chair of Health and Human Services, and they're frankly sick of it sitting in their bin, and they're glad to have it go. And no one is more welcoming than Senator Hoffman because it talks about EIDBI and the need for early intervention for young people with autism. So I urge people to vote yes. And Mr. President, it is my bill. Thank you.
Senator Abler moved that Senate File number 1765 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and re-referred to the Committee on Human Services. Any discussion? Seeing none on that motion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator move verbatim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 1788 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and re-referred to the Committee on Human Services. This is my bill, and I've spoken with the chairs.
And they are in agreement?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Thank you, Senator Umu Verbatim. She moves that Senate File 1788 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and re-referred to the Committee on Human Services. Any discussion? Seeing none on that motion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Latz.
Mr. President, I move that Senate File 1824, number 39 on general orders, be stricken and re-referred to the Committee on Finance.
On that motion, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 2156 be withdrawn from the Committee on Environment, Climate, and Legacy and be referred to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, Environment, and Climate. I've consulted with the appropriate people. Thank you.
And this is your bill, Senator?
It is indeed, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. Senator Murphy moves that Senate File number 2156 be withdrawn from the Committee on Environment, Climate, and Legacy and re-refers to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, Environment, and Climate. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion on that motion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Miller.
Mr. President, we are on such a roll right now that I hope we can keep moving along forward here. I move that Senate File 12 be withdrawn from the Committee on Taxes, given a second reading, and placed on general orders. Members, this is the tax to the bill to fully repeal the tax on Social Security benefits. Minnesota is now one of only 11 states, that still taxes Social Security benefits. And the reason why this is an urgency, it feels like I'm getting interrupted here, Mr. President.
Let me see what's going on. Point of order. For what purpose do you rise?
I will withdraw my point of order.
What? Senator Miller, continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given the most recent budget forecast showed that the state of Minnesota still has a massive budget surplus of over $17 billion, there is no need to wait any longer. The state of Minnesota has the resources available right now to provide seniors this much deserved relief. And at a time when many seniors are still struggling with the high rate of inflation, many of them are on fixed incomes, and the fact, Mr. President, that this bill has not had any movement in the
Senator
Senate,
Miller?
the time to do it is right now.
Senator Miller, hold on one moment. For what purpose do you rise?
Point of order. The motion is not debatable, and he's speaking to the motion.
That is correct.
Mr. President,
but I think he finished. Are you done?
Mr. President, I was speaking to why we need to do this right now, and I laid out all the reasons why we needed to do that. I urge members to vote yes so we can get this done now and provide our seniors with this much-deserved relief.
Senator Rest.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are in the midst of building up our tax bill, which is going to give a lot of relief, and to Minnesota taxpayers, we don't need to debate it today. And I urge members to vote no, and I ask for a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any further discussion? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I agree with Senator Miller. This is an urgent need. We need to move this bill quickly. Our senior citizens are getting ready to prepare their tax statements for 2022. And if we wait until the end of session when a likely overall tax bill is passed, we're going to miss this window of opportunity. Our senior citizens need and deserve this tax relief today, and we shouldn't make them have to go back and file amended returns. We don't have to do that. If we make this an urgency today and we move this to the floor, members, I urge a yes vote.
Senator Weissenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise to support this bill. You know, I know many people ran in the other party on this last year saying they were going to run and they were going to stop taxing Social Security, and that was of utmost importance. Now, we can do that, and we can do it today. We have other things like abortion that we pushed straight through because it was very important. I think giving people their taxes back is very important. I've had people in my district who are Democrats saying they voted Democrat thinking they're going to get their Social Security not taxed anymore because that's what they were promised. And they're actually waiting to do their taxes right now. I have people that are due taxes that are asking me, should I do these tax returns or not? Because they think that the Social Security thing is going to pass. So let's pass it today. Thank you.
Members, remember under Rule 5.1 that we can only discuss on a limited basis only on the motion. The underlying notions of the bill cannot be debated under Rule 5.1. With that clarity, Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. So then I will begin by asking you a question. So I don't know if it's a point of parliamentary inquiry or however you want to address it. But my question to you is...
Senator, if you're going to ask a specific question, you got to cite it in rule.
A point of parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
And for what purpose are you've risen already, but for what purpose?
To ask a follow-up question on the advice you just gave to the body.
Yes, what's the follow-up question?
Thank you, Mr. President. So a motion has been made, and we are not necessarily debating, well, we're not debating the merits of the bill.
That's correct.
But would it be in order, and hence the point of my parliamentary inquiry in regards to your advice, is it in order to discuss items that would persuade the body as to the urgency of the matter in order to persuade the body to vote one way or the other?
So, Senator, only to the limited question of the motion. That's all you can debate that you've heard others say, why it should be done right now. Not with any other bill, not with anything else, only to the motion.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. President and members, we absolutely need to vote in favor of the motion to bring this bill to the floor urgently. Yesterday, there were remarks by the majority. They held a press conference that was speaking about housing. And housing, and we all know, is very expensive. And so the Social Security...
Senator Lucero, nothing about housing. Remember, only around the motion. Remember, I clearly said nothing else, nor the bills, nothing else, only around the motion.
Okay, so Mr. President, so my remarks, in order to persuade the body to vote in favor of the urgency for the bill, how does one, and I'm asking rhetorically, I'm not asking you under a motion or a point of parliamentary inquiry, how does one persuade members to vote for a motion if they can't use terms that are not Social Security in this particular matter? How can an argument be made to frame a conversation to persuade?
So, Senator Lucero, I really don't want to hold the body up with this, okay? It's been done. I heard others do it. They did it quite nicely to say exactly why that they think this motion should be done, okay? So, I want to give you an opportunity to speak, but I don't want to rule on it, any point of order, because there was a point of order that was put forward by Senator Klein. So I just want you to just stay to the motion, why you think it's important, not using any other bills. I've cited that before. So if you'll be so kind as to just, if you want to say something, now's the time to say it around the motion, or I'm going to rule the point well taken, and then you won't be able to say anything else.
Point of order.
He's already made it. He's already.
Senator Klein, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I wish to make a separate point of order for the consideration of the President. Please refer to Section 28.4 in our temporary rules. A motion to, I will skip a few words, a motion to refer may not again be put on the same day nor at the same stage of the bill or proposition. We have already had this motion to refer in the precise manner. The bill is in the same form and the same stage as it was at the last time we had this bill. Under Rule 28.4, this motion is not in order.
You can't do it twice in one day. You see, this one now, because you can't do it twice in one day.
Or at the same stage. Or at the same stage.
So you would say.
So it's at the same stage.
The motion to put it on general orders is a recurrence of the same stage.
Yep.
Is it the, or is it the same bill? Is it the same bill?
It's the same bill and it's at the same
Oh,
stage.
so it is Senate File 12. There's only that. So the practical thing about it is they're talking about.
After having read the rule and consulted with the front staff, the point of order is well taken.
Mr. President, over here, Mr. President, other side, other side, other side. Here you go.
Thank you. Senator Miller.
Mr. President, I appeal the ruling of the chair and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Are you appealing the ruling of the president? Okay, I wanted to make sure. All right, so, and that's not debatable. Here we go. A green vote would uphold the ruling of the president. A red vote would not uphold the ruling of the president. A roll call has been requested and a roll call has been granted. The secretary would take the roll. I know, didn't know. Senator Kunesh, for those voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzick votes aye.
Senator Dietzick votes aye. Is that everyone? All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 34 ayes and 32 noes, the decision of the president is upheld.
Senator Marty. Senator Frentz, I'm sorry, Senator Frentz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, I move to take House File number 30 from the table. This is the catalytic converter bill from yesterday, and Mr. President, I do request a roll call vote.
Roll call has been requested, roll call granted. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I meant to request it as amended. Thank you, Mr. President.
As amended. Now, the Secretary will take the roll. This is the motion to remove the bill from the table as amended. Members, please vote. Oh, here they are. Okay. Oh, yeah, I just didn't want to close the door without you. All senators voting, all senators having voting that desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 40 ayes and 23 noes. The motion to take from the table prevails. Members, before us is House File 30 as amended. As you recall, yesterday, this bill was designated as a special order. We will continue our debate on the bill. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 41.2, I move to be excused from voting on all questions pertaining to House File 30.
Under Rule 41.2, that is a motion. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Senator Marty, remember, we're just picking up where we left off yesterday. So, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm not sure why there's so much hesitation to even bring this bill up again, but I thank you for bringing it back. It's an urgent issue. I think we're addressing the catalytic converter theft problem, a serious problem across the state. I think we're addressing it in a very responsible manner. We've been working with law enforcement, with auto theft investigation experts, county attorneys, others. I think we've got a good bill, and I urge your support.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, members. Senator Marty seems to feel this bill is going to really be the answer to the issues, and I would disagree with that, but that's fine. I do have the AS7 amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Dames moves the A7 amendment. The Secretary will report the A7 amendment. Senator Dames.
Senator Dames.
Oh, I'm sorry. Secretary.
Senator Dames moves to amend House File 30 as amended pursuant to Rule 45, adopted by the Senate April 27th as follows. Page 9 after line 13, insert. This is Amendment A-7.
Now, Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. This amendment asks the Department of Commerce Auto Theft Prevention Division to track changes in the catalytic converter theft crime as a result of this legislation, factoring in the market price changes of the rare metals inside. Is this bill is as good as Senator Marty says it is, and if it's going to do everything that Senator Marty thinks it's going to do, then I would think that he would welcome this kind of tracking and the data that we would receive from that. I believe that this is necessary to do this so that future legislations have this information in order to make adjustments to this bill as we go down the road. So I would ask for a green vote.
Any discussion on the A7 amendment? Senator Klein.
Mr. President, I request a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. A roll call has been granted. Seeing no additional discussion? Oh, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senator Dane, I don't support this amendment. Frankly, the bill is moving our work on catalytic converter theft thing largely out of Department of Commerce, frankly, into Department of Public Safety. So it doesn't make sense from that sense. And number two, the problem we have right now is we don't even have a tracking of how many of these converters are being stolen. Law enforcement will tell you repeatedly, many people don't even report the theft because they know there's nothing they can do the way the system works now. So I think that we don't know how many are being stolen now, so how you're going to compare how this bill is going to have an impact. And I think this bill will have an impact. It'll have a significant impact. It'll grow next year when we have the database where all these reports have to be put in immediately. I think it makes sense. I just urge you to vote no on this.
Before I let the author of the amendment make the last statement, any other comments to the A7 amendment? Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would urge adoption of this A7 amendment. The statement that we don't know how many are stolen just cannot be true. People are going out to their driveway and their car part is stolen and they report it, and that's the way that we build the numbers. The difficulty might be in how we catch the criminals, and this bill is not doing anything to address cracking down on the criminals. But we should have more transparency and information sent to the legislature on how this bill pans out. And it's just ironic that not only do we want to go about the wrong way of doing this bill, of cracking down on scrap dealers rather than cracking down on criminals, or as Senator Drazkowski pointed out yesterday, the guy with the Sawzall, we don't even want to have the transparency of showing how this will affect the issue of catalytic converter thefts going forward. We don't want the information turned over to the legislature so that we can see whether the claims made by the majority on this bill will be accurate or not. My hunch is it will not make a significant impact in catalytic converter thefts in Minnesota. But if you want to have a chance to prove me wrong, I am open to doing that. Adopt the A7 amendment, have the information and the report sent to the legislature, and then we can have concrete evidence on what direction this goes and how this pans out. Otherwise, if you vote no on the A7 amendment, it makes me wonder if the majority doesn't want to be proven wrong by making claims of how this will impact crime and not have it panned out as promised. So let's have some transparency. Let's have some concrete evidence and data sent to the legislature. This is a very easy and simple amendment to add to the bill, and I urge members support it.
Senator Klein.
Thank you, Mr. President. We heard this bill in the Commerce Committee after a 3-year wait this year, and what we heard testimony was that a great deal of catalytic converter theft is not reported. It tends to be an inconvenience. People tend to despair about a solution. So the report being demanded and purveying on agency time would not be helpful and likely would not really reflect the degree of theft that is out there. So I urge a no on the amendment.
Senator Dames, final word before we vote. Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I find it kind of interesting that people are saying that very few of these things are reported. That just don't, I don't believe that rings true. And the reason for that is people aren't stealing catalytic converters off of these older vehicles. They're stealing them mostly off the newer vehicles. And let me remind you, if you have comprehensive insurance, that's covered under your automobile policy. And in order to collect on that, you're going to turn that in. You're going to make a report to the police. I do not agree that there's a lot of these going on reported because it's too much of a hassle. As we're hearing, these catalytic converters cost anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. I don't think there's too many people out there that would say to get a claim on their auto insurance of $2,000 or $3,000 is too much of a burden to turn it into the police department. I'm not sure where the disconnect is, but folks, I don't believe it's in the fact that a large percent of these are not being reported. I don't agree with that. The other thing, Senator Marty, you just made my case as to why we'd be doing this, because we don't know how many are being stolen. We don't know all of this information, and this would be a good time to start collecting it and finding that out. Finding out how many are being stolen, what's the trafficking of them, what's going on. But apparently you don't want to do that. And the other thing I find very interesting is you're the one that feels that this may be a bill. You're hoping this is going to be the bill, the holy grail of the bills for catalytic converters, and other states are going to come along and they're going to adopt this bill. So if you really feel that way, why would you not want us to have information to promote that so that you could promote that to the other states about how the bill is doing everything you thought it would do? But members, I'll leave it at that, and I would certainly urge a green vote. It's another case to where I think this can make the bill better, and I think that we should be moving forward with this. I'd urge a green vote.
The Secretary will take the roll. Senator Kunesh, for those voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzig votes aye. Oops, excuse me, nay.
Senator Dietzig votes nay. Members, please vote. All senators voting, all senators having voted that desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 34 noes, the amendment is not adopted. Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we missed an opportunity here, but I guess it does not surprise me. It's been the history of the DFL not to want to improve their bills, but we'll continue. I have the A15 amendment to Mr. Chair, Mr. President.
Senator Dames offers the A15 amendment, and the Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Dames moves to amend House File 30 as amended pursuant to Rule 45 as follows. Page 9 after line 17, insert. This is Amendment A15.
Senator Dames, to your A15 amendment.
What this amendment would do, Mr. President, is this act is repealed effective upon the effective date of any federal legislation that substantially regulates catalytic converter thefts, purchases, or possessions. This repeal includes all amendments made to any provision of this act during the intervening legislative session between this act and the enactment of the repeal. And I would urge a green vote. What this would do is if we get federal legislation, that would repeal this act and put in the federal legislation. And chances are if we get federal legislation, it very likely will have some stiffer penalties for the people stealing them, and that's what we need if we're going to curtail this, so I would encourage a green vote.
Senator Klein.
Roll call, Mr. President.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Marty, to the A15 amendment.
Mr. President, thank you. I urge your rejection of this amendment. Yeah, let's find it. If the federal government's going to move ahead on this, which I'd love to see happen, let's see what they do. I think this bill is one that law enforcement says is going to be very effective. I think it's one auto theft investigators have pointed out it meets every criteria that they think you should do in order to address this issue. And I think it makes good sense. So putting in law a repealer based on some possible action of an entity that we don't control is a bizarre idea. So I urge a no vote.
The secretary will take the roll. Members, please vote. Senator Kunis, for those voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzick votes no on this Dames amendment.
Senator Dietzick votes no. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 30 ayes and 35 noes, the A15 amendment is not adopted. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A14 amendment.
Senator Duckworth offers the A14 amendment. The secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Duckworth moves to amend. Whose amendment?
Hold on one moment. Senator Duckworth, the A14 amendment is what you offered, is that right?
That is correct, Mr. President.
This is drawn up as an amendment to the amendment.
Mr. President, it's an amendment to the A9.
Senator Duckworth, I understand that it's drafted so that it amends the previous amendment that Senator Marty did. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay,
President.
we will report the amendment, the A14 amendment.
Senator Duckworth moves to amend the Marty Amendment A9 adopted by the Senate yesterday to House File 30 as follows. Page 1, delete lines 4 to 14 and insert. This is Amendment A14.
Senator Duckworth, to the A14 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's fairly simple. There's a portion of the bill that has to talk about the ability to pay somebody if they were to bring in something to a scrapyard for sale, that they can't be paid for at least 5 days. And there's also a portion of the bill that says that that business has to keep that material on its site for at least 7 days. And so that's why we offer the amendment. If they can't be paid for at least 5 days, it's going to cause those lawfully selling catalytic converters to take them out of state to get payment immediately, thus putting Minnesota businesses at a disadvantage. And if these businesses have to retain these things for at least 7 days, it's just not practical. They're going to have to store large quantities. There's going to be safety issues. The price of these materials can change hourly, making it extremely challenging and nearly impossible from a business standpoint. So the solution here is not to entice law-abiding citizens to sell these out of state or to add hurdles for our businesses. It should be to crack down on those actually stealing the catalytic converters. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Marty, to the A14 amendment.
Mr. President, I think the amendment we adopted yesterday was a good amendment, and it did give a little bit of, it took away burdens that the scrap dealers said was going to be a problem. It doesn't address it if I or you come in there with 2 or 3 converters, and frankly, most people who are coming in with 2 or 3 converters have stolen them. It just simply says we're going to gut a lot of provision of the bill. I think this makes no sense, and if you think the law is great the way it is and we're doing fine on catalytic converter theft, you could support this amendment. Otherwise, I urge you to vote red.
Senator Klein. Senator Herr.
Mr. President, I ask for a roll call on A14.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. I want to make sure, Senator Duckworth, there's no one else, and I want to make sure I give you the last word. Anyone else? Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would agree. I think the A9 was a step in the right direction, did add some common sense to the bill. To say that this amendment doesn't make any sense at all, I think is missing the mark a little bit. We're just trying to make it a little more convenient for folks to actually carry out this business who are doing it in a lawful manner. I encourage folks to vote in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Secretary will take the roll. Members, please vote. Senator Kunesh, for those voting under Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Dziedzic votes no.
Senator Dziedzic votes no. All senators voting that has a desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 31 ayes and 34 noes. The amendment is not adopted. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A4 amendment.
Senator Duckworth offers the A4 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Duckworth moves to amend House File 30 as amended pursuant to Rule 45 as follows. Page 1 after line 6, insert. This is Amendment A-4.
Senator Duckworth, to your A4 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment would leave the bill intact and simply add another common sense provision that meets the expectations of the public. It's a simple and effective approach that addresses the crime on the front end as well as the back end. It creates a multi-jurisdictional law enforcement task force dedicated to combating catalytic converter theft. Not the kind of task force that produces a list of recommendations, but the kind of task force that takes immediate and aggressive action to deter, stop, and bring to justice those stealing from our neighbors. We can support law enforcement and help them go on the offense regarding this issue. The result of this amendment would put criminals throughout the state on notice that we take catalytic converter theft seriously in Minnesota, and that will back our police with the resources, training, and multi-agency coordination they need to effectively combat it. I'll read just a little bit from the amendment, Mr. President. It establishes a multi-jurisdictional statewide catalytic converter theft task force to develop a strategy that may include the development of protocols and procedures to investigate these thefts and structure for best addressing the issue on a statewide basis. It also would appoint or create a statewide commander, and they shall coordinate and monitor all multi-jurisdictional catalytic converter theft enforcement activities, facilitate local efforts to combat the issue, facilitate training for law enforcement, monitor compliance with investigative protocols, implement an outcome and evaluation of data quality control process, be responsible for the selection and for cause of removal of those on the task force, provide supervision, submit an operational budget, and submit quarterly task force activity reports. This right here would add a little bit of meat to the bill that's before us and actually allow our law enforcement folks in a coordinated effort all across the state to go on the offense, not just play defense when it comes to catalytic converter theft. We need to do more than just prevent stolen catalytic converters from being sold. We actually need to prevent them from being stolen in the first place. We have the opportunity to pass a bipartisan two-pronged approach that will crack down on those stealing them and allow for those in possession of unmarked catalytic converters to be prosecuted. Let's work together on behalf of Minnesotans, strengthen the bill, and bring an end to catalytic converter thefts across our state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Klein.
Roll call.
Roll call, requested roll call granted. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Duckworth, I don't think this task force would accomplish what it's supposed to do. I think it's not needed. I think law enforcement is already aware of how we have to address it. I think this bill addresses that. The one thing I will say for this amendment, unlike the last one, which you point out makes it more convenient for some of the people buying the thing. It also makes it far more convenient. Your last amendment made it far more convenient for the thieves to continue stealing them. This one at least doesn't make it easier for thieves to steal it, but it's not a very helpful way to do it. Let's just implement what law enforcement and the auto theft investigators say makes sense, and if they have some ideas beyond that, we can pull something together. But it seems to me that a common sense bill that is going to make a big impact that law enforcement, county attorneys, and everyone supports, let's just go ahead with that. And if we feel a need to appropriate $500,000 for a task force later, that's fine. But at this point, I urge you to vote no.
Hold on, Senator Duckworth. I just want to make sure no one else wants to speak before you can close us out. Any other? All right, Senator Duckworth, to your A4 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it, and I won't debate my previous amendment. It failed. But here's what I'll say. Maybe it's just the infantry guy in me. This is a pretty simple approach to combating what is a very pervasive issue across our state when we're talking about the theft of catalytic converters. Now, we can take multiple approaches on how we want to solve this here at the state level. The bill before us is a little bit more convoluted than the approach I would take. You know, from being a first responder, having a little bit of a military background, and understanding what it's like to actually go on the offense and combat stuff and even prevent it from happening, that's missing in the current bill. This amendment would allow our law enforcement officers to get additional resources, have more capacity to coordinate across the state, and actually go after the folks who are stealing these things. It's one thing to try to catch them on the back end when they're selling them. It's a whole nother thing to actually stop, prevent, and deter the thefts from even occurring in the first place. I think that's respectfully what's currently missing in the bill. This amendment, which doesn't change anything that is being proposed by the author of the bill, simply seeks to add or improve it, is a whole nother method that I think, in tandem with what's being proposed before us, would really set our state up for success, allow law enforcement to combat this, to stop it, to answer the calls from people all across the state that are looking for us to take action, and then also creates penalties for being in possession of unmarked catalytic converters. This is a two-pronged approach. This amendment really seeks to help what Senator Marty is trying to accomplish with his underlying bill. So folks, it's pretty common sense. If you want to support law enforcement's ability to get out there, take action, and stop the theft of catalytic converters, vote green on the amendment. Let's do some good here and show the people of Minnesota that bipartisan work still can get done up here at the Capitol. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Secretary will take the roll. Members, please vote. Senator Kunis, for those who voted under Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Dziedzic votes no.
Senator Dziedzic votes no. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 34 noes, the A4 amendment is not adopted. Any other amendments? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File 30, a bill for an act relating to public safety, establishing requirements for the purchase of catalytic converters, etc.
Third reading, Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Senator Marty, for bringing forward the bill, not just this year, but in the previous three cycles, where Minnesotans were plagued by catalytic converter theft. Our neighbors, our friends, our children. I think we've reviewed that we've become third in the nation. We've sat by as a legislature for the last 3 years that you've offered this bill and become third in the nation, highest catalytic converter theft. Average cost of one of these things is $2,600. Some of our neighbors, including my own family, have had this done to them repeatedly. So that means they incur a single expense of $2,600 and then additional expenses of the same amount. And they've been asking why the legislature has done nothing for years, and today we are doing something. We've heard a lot of amendments from the minority party and angry speeches about how we're not being hard enough on criminals and we're not going after the people with the saws and so forth. You know what's less effective than doing this is doing nothing at all, which is what has been happening for the last 3 years in this chamber. So today we are doing something. We're going to prevent inconvenience and costs from being incurred to Minnesotans, and we are going to deliver on the consumer protections that we should have been doing all along. Thank you, Senator Marty. Vote green.
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been sitting here and listening to this for a long time and getting more and more disturbed about the inaction that is being promoted by the other party. I spent some time with my police chief this morning on the phone, and he is outraged that we're doing nothing. He has come to the Capitol and has testified for this bill in the past, and actually it was last year when it wouldn't be heard in the Senate. But what he says is, why are you not doing something? All law enforcement is behind this bill. And I asked him, okay, what do you do when you find a catalytic converter in somebody's car? And he said, actually nothing. We can't charge them with anything because we can't connect that catalytic converter to a theft and to a car. Senator Marty's bill will do exactly that. A police officer, if they see a catalytic converter or if they suspect one and open the trunk and find them because they found a saw in the car, they can charge that person. They can take possession of that converter because the VIN number will go right back to the car that it came from, and they can do it on their telephone, or they can call in that VIN number and get that connection. And when you look at the numbers of catalytic converters that are being stolen, they're going up. And what's happening, because we're not doing anything, is that a black market is being developed where you can, if you are inclined to do so, you can steal a catalytic converter and then you can sell it to a black market installer to put it on another car. And nobody is going to be going underneath your car to find out if it had a VIN number on it. So the only time you're going to be able to connect that VIN number to a car is when it's in the possession of the thief or of the fence that takes over on it. So this is an excellent bill. It will make a big difference right away. And now there are other things that we need to consider, and that is that wealthy people buy cars that have dual exhausts. So that means there's 2 catalytic converters on there. So it doubles the cost. But generally, they will have comprehensive insurance that covers it. People that don't have that kind of income, they're the ones that are going to suffer the most because there is no way for them to afford the thousands of dollars to replace that stolen converter. And my chief said to me, this is just on my radar because yesterday in Central Eagan at the TJ Maxx, a woman came out from the store and her catalytic converter was stolen right in the parking lot, right during the day. So this is happening far too much and we need to do something about it. So I strongly support law enforcement. I strongly support their seeing that this is going to make a big difference in catalytic converter thieves being caught and being prosecuted. So thank you, Senator Marty, and I urge a green vote.
Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of this bill. I think it's appalling that this has not gotten a hearing until now with 3 years. So I applaud Senator Marty for championing championing this over that period of time. I'm standing because I am a victim of catalytic converter theft. From the secure parking lot of the KSTP TV studios while I was parked in front of the security area. That is how fast and efficient these people are, in and out in 5 minutes. And when the police came, they said the same thing we've already heard. Because of the current laws, there's pretty much nothing you can do. We've talked a lot about the cost, even if you have insurance. Mine was still $200. But there's also a very personal cost to this. I was about to leave the next day for the memorial of an aunt who had just died. So I already had all of that going on, and then on top of it, I didn't have a car to drive up north. It happened to a friend of mine in their parking lot in the middle of the day while they were in the backyard. It happened so fast. Imagine the security of being home in your own yard and having this happen. So I think not just because of the economic cost, but also to all of the people who have been victims of this and then the intrusion in their life, it is time to get this done. So thank you again, Senator Marty, for your perseverance in this, and I hope everyone else votes green. Thank you.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm wondering if the chief author would yield for 1 or 2 questions.
Marty, will you yield? Senator Marty? Senator Marty will yield. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Marty. So when I'm looking at the bill here, I see obviously multiple references to the term catalytic converter. Having spoke to multiple other people, including scrap dealers, I asked the question, what is it about the catalytic converter that makes it a prime target for these crimes that are being committed? And the answers I've received are it's not the outside, it's not the casing, it's the inside. It's the metals on the inside that are valuable and are what the target is. And so when I'm looking at this language, I see catalytic converter, I see on line page 6, I see the requirements to provide inscriptions and it has to be marked. My question, Mr. President and Senator Marty, is if this language becomes law, I'm pretty on solid ground believe that these criminals are simply going to remove the outer casing where the inscription, the markings are going to take place. And so because it's the inside, the metals that are what matter, what's going to happen when they just simply go through the extra few second step to remove the outer casing? What do we do, and how does your bill address the metals part of it?
Senator Marty, to the question.
Mr. Chair, Mr. President, Senator Lucero, you know, if somebody's going to steal one of these and if they can get it to their home and then they can get in the workshop and take it all apart and do that, yes, they might get away with it. Right now, they don't even have to do that. They just take it in and fence it. We make it a little more difficult for them. I think we're going to stop a lot of them because, frankly, not everybody has the workshop and capability of taking it apart and getting out the precious metals. But you're right, it's only the precious metal. That's the only reason people want them. This bill makes a good attempt to stop that, and I think that's why we have such strong support from law enforcement, auto theft investigators. Urge your support.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, and that's, I guess, the heart of the concerns we've heard expressed here by Republicans as we've been debating this bill. It's frustrating to hear that nothing has been done, so we want to do something, and something's better than nothing, and therefore let's pass this bill. But the reality is, Mr. President, as very well articulated by members, both yesterday or 2 days ago and today, or whenever the first one brought the bill up, Drazkowski referenced the Sawzall and the criminals. And they're very, very cunning, and they will go through whatever means. Unfortunately, those that are committed to harming others, those that are committed to committing these acts, they're going to find a very quick way to remove the casing and remove the metals. And so what, Mr. President and members, that's what Republicans have been focusing on, is we need to target the criminals, not put additional burdens on scrap metal dealers, because the criminals will simply be able to evade the language of this bill by removing the metals. So you have a Sawzall, and as we've heard, and as we know, we've heard on the floor, as we've heard in news accounts, It's a few minutes, it's less than 5 minutes. I've heard it's 30 seconds. Sawzall's cutting two ends of the exhaust pipe, and there you go. Taking that same Sawzall, cutting the outer casing, and then removing the metals is a few extra seconds. It doesn't require a workshop. It doesn't require having to go to your house and more extravagant tools. And that's where this bill falls short, Mr. President. We need to focus on the criminals. Now, the metals, I also asked the question to the scrapyard dealers, what is the form that these metals take? And the answer I was given is that it could be a sand, so really fine particles, or it could be larger chunks, more like rocks, small stones or pebbles. And in either of those cases, if the outer casing is removed, and all we have in the backs of people's cars or their trunks are a Sawzall and then maybe a 5-gallon bucket of what appears to be pebbles or stones, we haven't solved anything. We haven't empowered law enforcement to be able to go after. All the criminals are going to do is move one additional step to evade capture. And so that's why adding the additional burdens, unfortunately, isn't going to help the victims of these criminals. So, Mr. President, thank you so much. I do appreciate the debate, but again, this bill does fall short of where we need to be.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also urge members to vote no on this bill, and frankly, the arguments that have been made on how there's been inaction for the last 3 years proved that we didn't care and didn't want to do anything about it is just simply ludicrous. The Republican solution has been very thoroughly put forward in the last few years, including retaining more police officers, recruiting more police officers. Members, in the last few years, under Democrat policies, we've had one of the largest eras of lawlessness and crime that I have experienced in my lifetime. And the Republican solution was to go after the criminals committing the actions that harmed victims and harmed citizens in our communities. And Republicans don't have to wait for election season to support law enforcement. We do that every day of the week, year-round, to support the officers that uphold and enforce the law fairly and justly, and to help keep our communities safe. Instead, what we have before us is not a tough on crime bill. It is a very weak on crime bill. It is not doing anything to shed the reputation that you've developed of being very soft on crime. This bill will do more for putting burdens on law-abiding citizens than it will for actual criminals that still have the capability to sneak in, cut a converter off your vehicle, get back out in just a couple minutes' notice. Mr. President, if people on this floor like me, law-abiding citizens, can easily figure out ways that criminals are going to get around this bill and continue their lawless actions, then you can be darn well sure that the criminals that think even smarter on how to get around the law are going to easily find ways to get around this law. They'll take it out of state, they'll cut off outer casings, they'll take it to places that they know that they can get the top dollar for. The Republican solution was to go after the criminals, and the Democrat solution was to go after law-abiding citizens and the businesses. And unfortunately, that's been an all too common theme, not only on this issue, but a number of others. So I'm not supporting this bill today because just saying that doing something is better than nothing is not always the case. Doing something could end up being worse than the position that you're in today. And passing this bill will make it far less likely that we take up in session things to direct. We voted down amendments to this bill that would direct more resources to law enforcement officials for better coordination, for better planning, for better crackdowns and sting operations to go after the guys with the sawzalls. We had those amendments here today, Mr. President, and the majority voted no. It is ludicrous to claim that this is a bill being tough on crime when it's doing more against law-abiding citizens than it is criminals. Just as it would be ludicrous if you were a store owner and were victim to crimes, people robbing or stealing items out of your store, if the government then showed up to you, the store owner, to crack down on you, that would be ludicrous. If you're a homeowner and your home is broken into and people rob you and steal items out of your home, and the government comes and cracks down on you, the homeowner, that would be ludicrous. That's what this underlying bill is doing. It is not doing hardly anything to go after the criminals committing the acts, but it's going to do a whole lot against the law-abiding citizens that will have extra steps to jump through if they have a legitimate converter that they're trying to recycle. And it will not create a robust system at all. It will create a very easy system for criminals to continue to go around, to continue stealing converters off of vehicles, and to continue making this a profitable criminal enterprise. I urge members to vote no on this bill. And to members of the majority, I've been hoping for a while that you would shed your persona of being soft on crime, and you actually have a chance to do that by voting no on this bill. We do need to do better on getting tough on crime, dealing with the actual criminals that commit the act, instead of doing more that hinders law-abiding citizens. Members, I urge you to reject this bill before you.
Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Catalytic converter theft is a serious problem in our communities. Our local police departments and county sheriffs have been telling us for years that this is an issue. In fact, Minnesota has one of the highest theft rates of catalytic converters in the nation. Yesterday, in the Vadnais Heights Press, a victim reported a catalytic converter stolen from their vehicle, estimated loss of $1,200. A local small business reported catalytic converters were stolen from 2 company pickup trucks. The legislature of the past has done nothing, and I'm proud to be part of the majority that doesn't use public safety as a slogan. There is a plan and public safety dollars to go with it. As someone who prioritizes public safety and support for my local law enforcement, and support for my police, I stand in support of this bill, and I urge a green vote. Thank you.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, I rise to urge you to vote no on this bill, and let's do a bill that would actually stop catalytic converter theft and go after the thieves rather than make more criminals out of small, hardworking business owners in Minnesota, which is what this bill is aimed at. Senator Matthews made a good analogy. It'd be like going after the store clerk because somebody's going in and robbing stuff off his or her store shelf. That's ludicrous. Let's go after the thieves with the sawzalls that are crawling under unsuspecting car owners, ripping off their catalytic converter inside of minutes, and then getting away. So, Senator Marty, your bill falls short because Senator Lucero just talked to us about how fast somebody will be able to skirt this if they want to spend a few extra minutes cutting open the catalytic converter and taking out the valuable parts, and then they'll leave the rest behind, scrap on the ground. And no scrap dealer is going to want to own a catalytic converter or have it on presence on the chance that they're going to become a new felon. And then they get to employ the legal services of an attorney and spend thousands of dollars trying to defend themselves against the state of Minnesota that they also have to pay to prosecute them because they're taxpayers. How ludicrous is that? But Senator Lucero, there's an easier way around this. Senator Marty, there's a gaping hole in this bill. I happen to represent a district that borders South Dakota. Senator Marty, the thieves are going to go to Wisconsin, go to South Dakota, go to North Dakota, Iowa, and take this scrap out of the state, so the business owners that have a scrap business won't even be able to process much of this now. They'll get away with it because they'll just go get their cash right across the border. We're standing here in St. Paul. Wisconsin's less than a half hour to the east. And when they come back, they can bring their fireworks that they can buy there that they can't buy in Minnesota to boot. That's how ridiculous this bill is, Senator Marty. You're going after the wrong person. Go after the thieves. Don't make more criminals out of hardworking Minnesotans. And that's what's wrong with this bill. Putting more burden on scrap metal recyclers. As I said yesterday, many of them are part-time. They do this on the side in an evening, or maybe it's the way they get started, and 10 years later, they've got enough business that they can go full-time being a scrap recycler. But there's all sizes. This is an easy business for many people in rural Minnesota to pick up, add some family income, do it without having to have a lot of degrees or registrations or licenses from the state. We even tried to have to add registrations to them yesterday to make it even harder to be a small business scrap recycler. And yet, on the other hand, we want to encourage people to do more recycling. Yet now we're going to make it harder and make the scrap recycler a criminal. Let's start over. Let's go after the thieves. Let's toughen the penalties. Let's make them the felons. If they take one catalytic converter off, Senator Marty, let's start by making that a felony. And then let's pinch these guys a little bit, and gals, whoever's doing it, and make it hurt so they don't think about stealing a second and a third catalytic converter. And Mr. President, let me conclude by letting the members know why I say we have to stop the thieves and make the penalty hurt enough that they quit. Last week, I was downtown with a couple of us that went for lunch. And afterwards, somebody that used to work around this Capitol area stopped me, somebody I knew, and was telling me about their recent experience for his wife, who was carjacked in the last 12 months by one of these thieves that are being handled with kid gloves. They had held a gun to his wife's head, carjacked her, didn't just take the catalytic converter off, but took the whole car. Find out that the person that did that had a rap sheet of over 15 different crimes on their rap sheet. We're not going after the criminals, folks. We got to stop this. Why should somebody have 15 different crimes on their record and still be out on the street so they can hold a gun to an innocent person's head and steal their car? This is just as foolhardy as that. So let's go after the criminal. Let's not make more criminals out of small business men and women across Minnesota. Members, let's vote no, and let's go after what will really stop the thieves. That's making the penalties hurt so they don't do it twice.
Senator Seeberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. For at least 3 years, Senator Marty has been working on this bill, but we haven't seen it move forward, which means that Minnesotans have continued to be plagued by catalytic converter theft, and law enforcement's hands have remained tied. It's important to remember that the average cost to replace a catalytic converter is $2,600, excluding the time and hassle involved, and affecting Minnesotans' real ability to go to work, take care of their kids, bring their kids to school, and live their lives. The Commerce Committee made this bill a priority, and I'm proud to have been a part of that discussion. This bill is important to my district, it's important to law enforcement, and it's important to me. I commend Senator Marty for championing this bill, and I will be proud to vote yes for these important protections for Minnesotans.
Members, we are now going to Senator Pratt. Oh, you want to be on the list? Okay, some others. Okay, sorry about that. All right, I have to put you back on the list. Sorry. Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate Senator Marty bringing this bill forward. I know this has been a passion of his for a long time. I'm really disappointed, Mr. President, in the rhetoric of the majority in discussing Republican motives and Republican members and accusing them of stalling this bill. The amendments that we put forward were in good faith. They were focused on the actions of the criminals and not hurting our locally owned, law-abiding businesses and impacting law-abiding citizens. This bill will put these locally owned businesses at a competitive disadvantage to our neighbors across the border. Now, I agree with what was said. Catalytic converter theft is rampant. We are among one of the highest thefts in the country. But by focusing on the small businesses and not putting more effort into stopping the initial crime itself, will have no effect. The premise that we need to do something, anything, is what we're being told. I would disagree. If we are going to harm law-abiding citizens, then we, without stopping the initial crime, then maybe nothing is the better route to go. And let's refocus our efforts on those who are actually stealing them, because, Mr. President, moving these to Wisconsin, to Iowa, to South Dakota, to North Dakota is of little inconvenience for people who are doing this crime. So, members, I'm voting no because, in my opinion, this bill will do nothing to deter theft. These will simply go to neighboring states. Now, we may feel good that we took action, but let's be honest. Let's just be honest that this will have very little real impact to the thefts. And, Mr. President, I do want to comment again on being disappointed at the tone of the majority and the accusations of having bad faith and detrimental motives and towards this bill. It's hurting our debate not only in the chamber, but I think it's damaging the culture of this body. We need to treat each other with more respect than that, Mr. President, and I think we look to you to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Members, I just want to remind you of something, that if we don't wrap this bill up within 10 minutes, that's not to say that you can't speak, then we'll have to come back at 5:15, okay? I just want you to know, because I'm trying to give you all the time that you need, but I want you to be aware of that. Senator Jaskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we have before us a bill that is wrong-headed in its direction. I've been looking in the bill and trying to find where the focus on the theft is. The problem members are trying to address is theft of catalytic converters. So wouldn't you think about who is doing the stealing if you're doing a bill around theft of catalytic converters? And, you know, I understand the police want to have some sort of way or conduit or path to do something. You know, just something to do something. And the proposal before us attempts to do something while the thief is out there with the Sawzall whacking off the catalytic converter off someone else's vehicle. The police are running around trying to take it out on the business. That's what we have in the bill, Mr. President. While somebody is sawing off the catalytic converter with a Sawzall, the police are at the business trying to stop the crime. Mr. President, it doesn't add up. This bill is nothing more than a legislative rope-a-dope. That's what we have before us. While this is going on over here, we're going to send the cops over here. Something is wrong with this picture. We're just simply putting forward a bill that is going to be useless, it's going to be counterproductive, and instead of bringing consequences to the guy with the Sawzall, we're bringing extra burden and unduly consequences and punishment to law-abiding businesses in the state of Minnesota. This is a legislative rope-a-dope. The people of Minnesota got to know that the majority that's bringing this bill think they're going to put that out there and say, Minnesotans, this is going to solve the problem. Well, the problem is going to be going on still over here. The bill fails to do something about the guy with the Sawzall. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The longer I sat here and listened to members speak to this bill, my blood kept boiling further and further. I can't believe it has been said repeatedly on the Senate floor that the Republicans didn't take the issue of the catalytic converter theft seriously, and that hasn't been addressed for 3 years. That is absolutely not true. Many new members weren't here. They could do a simple bill search. I had a bill. In 2020, I too had my catalytic converter stolen right there in the parking lot of a big box store in the middle of the daytime. Even got the guy on video, and within 30 seconds, my catalytic converter is gone. $2,000 later and a lot of hassle, got it back, and I said, this needs to be addressed. Wasn't just a bill, it was a bipartisan bill. So what I did is I reached out to all of the stakeholders to get input. I met with the affected parties. I met with law enforcement at every level. I even visited a scrapyard in West St. Paul and toured the facility to actually see how the day-to-day business works when a catalytic converter comes in. And they go through a lot of steps of getting the driver's license, signing in, the video. There's already tons of government mandates on these scrap dealers. And then we worked on language, and we came out with a bipartisan solution that worked. So I really, really take exception to the claim that the previous Senate didn't address this issue seriously. I can tell you, members, we took it very, very seriously, and we did something about it. The only reason it didn't advance is because the previous House did not want to pass a bill that would include penalties for the actual criminals cutting off the catalytic converters. So I didn't give up. I was like, all right, they don't want to do that. Let's try something else. So in 2022, look it up, members. We addressed it, bill search catalytic. I had another bill for a program to develop a database to track catalytic converters. And it passed. And the Department of Commerce even testified that in the Senate Commerce Committee, that this pilot project is effectively deterring theft. So, Mr. President and members, to set the record straight, we did take this issue very seriously, and I don't appreciate members saying anything to the contrary. We had a solution that would work by cracking down on the criminals, which is where the issue lies. Mr. President, I'm very sorry to say that we have become third in the nation under this administration's lax attitude towards crime. Thank you.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to make this short, but bear with me a little bit here. First of all, this bill is not going to fix the problem. This is one of those feel-good bills that you folks that are voting for this can go back to your districts and say how much you've done when you've done nothing. To the freshmen here that talked about how we've done nothing for 3 years, you're freshmen, so I'm not going to put you in the spot and ask you about the bill that Senator Housley just talked about and ask you what was in that bill. I'm not going to talk about the other bill Senator Housley talked about and ask you freshmen why that bill didn't get passed in the House. Because you weren't here and you don't know. But take a little advice. Your word's the only thing you've got. So make sure when you start accusing people of something, you know that your facts are correct. And for you members that aren't freshmen, to stand up and say that we refuse to do anything for 3 years, I think what you're probably forgetting is there were 2 bills passed off of this floor and they had bipartisan support. But how quick you forgot those. And Senator Marty, I did not hear your bill for 3 years. And I told you yesterday why I did not hear it, and I'm going to tell you again today why I did not hear it. I did not hear it because it's not a solution to the problem. It's a solution looking for more of a problem than an actual solution to the problem. Because you folks refuse to penalize the criminals. Instead of penalizing the criminals, you want to penalize the businesses. And folks, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Iowa will be getting a lot of our catalytic converters. And if that's what you want, you're going to accomplish it. But you're not going to accomplish the theft of the catalytic converters. And for you folks on the floor today that talked about you had a friend and just recently they got their catalytic converter stolen, I hope tonight you think about how you just did not help them. You did nothing today to solve that problem. You're going to put it all in the business, you're going to feel good, and you can talk about the great bill you passed. If you thought this was such a great bill, folks, you would have been willing to accept the amendment that would track some of these thefts. But no, we're not going to do that because that might not be a good idea. I'm going to cut it off there. And members, this is a bad bill, and I would suggest that we do not pass this bill. We go back to the drawing board, bring a bill back that has penalties for the criminals, and let's get something that's really going to work done.
Senator Marty, briefly, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, members, for the debate. Just want to point out to some of the Republican members that the rhetoric about how you're tough on crime doesn't make you tough on crime. Saying that this bill doesn't penalize criminals doesn't make it true, because the bill does. The bill gets every step along the way, the person cutting it off the car, the people they sell it to, the people who are buying it, and everything else. The bill hits every step along the way. Several of you pointed out, including Senator Westrom, that one of the arguments is that the thieves, you know, if they have to get too much hassle here in Minnesota, they're going to bring their stolen property to other states, which I don't doubt. Some of that happens now. Some will continue to happen. But then saying that that's denying Minnesota businesses of legitimate business is kind of bizarre because they're stolen property. We're trying to get at the fencing operations. Not every scrap dealer is a crook. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying a lot of them are buying property that's stolen. This will enable them to know they're not. And saying that, well, you just guys want to just do something. And doing something isn't necessarily better than doing nothing. Well, yes, that's why we're listening to the experts. Not saying, oh, we should do a study sometime. Oh, not saying, well, we should do this and this and this. As of 2 years ago already, Auto Recyclers Association wrote that they support the International Association of Auto Theft Investigators' 6 policy points for effective catalytic converter anti-theft legislation. And then they go out and name the previous bill number of mine, which is a similar bill to this, meets the requirements of all 6 policy points. They urged the Senate Commerce Chair to drop the stuff they were working on, which they said wouldn't accomplish any of those goals, and to take this. So if you say you trust with law enforcement, and with criminal investigators and prosecutors and chiefs of police, what they're saying will work, vote for the bill. If you think you know a lot better than all of them, maybe you can say, oh, this bill doesn't do anything, or this bill doesn't penalize the criminals. You could read the bill and you'd find out it actually does. I urge your support. There's no reason this bill doesn't have 66 green votes, and I urge your support and urge a green vote for the sake of Minnesotans.
The Secretary will take the roll on House File 30 as amended. Senator Kunis, those voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dietzick votes aye on the Marty bill.
Senator Dietzick votes aye. Members, please vote. The Secretary will close the roll. There being 40 ayes and 25 noes, the bill is passed and the title agreed to. Members, we will now move to the 13th order of business, announcements of Senate interests. Any announcements of Senate interests? Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session: Howe all day, Westrom 11 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. Any additional announcements of Senate's interests? Senator Friends.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, members. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Monday, March 6th at 11 a.m.
On that motion, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now adjourned.